Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Sanguinisma channel. It's been a little while, and since acceptances at my graduate program here at Harvard have been released recently, I wanted to make this video to hopefully help inform the incoming applicants how to best navigate the graduate application cycle to get the most out of their application's experience. Best of luck! My advice will pertain largely to US public policy programs. In watching this video, keep in mind that I do not come from a professional policy background in any sense of the word. Disclaimer that this video only represents my views and not the views of any institution or organization that I am affiliated with in any way, shape, or form. First, let's start with the obvious considerations. Why should you apply to graduate school? Here's my non-exhaustive list of reasons. Professional growth, meaning you're currently at a stalemate in your career trajectory and cannot think of something more profitable to your professional growth to do right now. Career pivot, such as myself, where I moved from psychology into public policy without having any professional experience in public policy. You want to do original research with professional academic connections at a specific institution, and you don't have any other ways into that specific network. For example, someone who can introduce you to a particular department or professor. The degree gets you closer to your goal. For example, if I want to be a therapist in the United States, a requirement for licensure is a certain level of education, such as a master's degree and the appropriate clinical hours. Without that, I can't become a therapist. Some bad reasons are, you could not think of any other options. This is different from graduate school being your only option. If all you can think of is, I should go to grad school, that fails to consider other contexts in which you might apply yourself, including in a different job, staying without employment or education, and living life if that is something affordable to you, or participating in some kind of other professional or academic engagement. Another really bad reason is you want to go to a specific institution for the prestige and the prestige only. If you apply to a program knowing that they will accept you and you go for the prestige alone, rather than the prestige and a combination of the good reasons I already talked about, you're really only setting yourself up to waste a lot of time, as your education isn't everything. It becomes less relevant over time, and to put so much time into something that returns less and less over time when you can do something else to professionally develop yourself in the same time shows how much of a waste of time doing this is. I applied to graduate school in two different cycles. The first cycle of applications was in my senior year of undergrad and was not very successful for some reasons I'll talk about later. My second round of applications was in my gap year directly following graduation. I also worked mostly full-time hours while managing this application, which then gave me a very different worldview into what I wanted professionally. It also gave me a clearer picture of what was possible and what I valued academically and professionally, which is not something a lot of people can say if they go into a graduate program right out of undergrad. To start mapping out the process, I first created a spreadsheet of all the certified graduate programs that were accessible to me. And then I ranked these schools based on how well they fit me. This included criteria like climate, reputation, the match of the curriculum to what I wanted, and the match of faculty interest to my interests. By ranking each of these schools on these criteria, I could then sort them based on an average rank across all of the categories to create a cutoff point for what schools I would apply to, and then create targeted application packages based on what mattered the most to me at that particular school. For example, if I liked one school because of a particular faculty member's research interests, then I could talk about research more in that application than in an application to a school where I thought the professional development resources were stronger. What is universal to all programs nowadays is the statement of purpose. It's essentially what it sounds like, and it usually comes in a pair with the personal statement. You should think of these two as complements to each other. The statement of purpose should provide with a general professional narrative of the things you did, with professional logic behind them. For example, you can say things like, I wanted to work for this nonprofit to further develop my data analysis skills from undergrad, and this culminated in this project that I worked on, which received this recognition. On the other hand, the personal statement should humanize the professional logic. If you say that you did all this data analysis work throughout your professional career in your statement of purpose, the personal statement should explain why. It could be that you've always been fascinated by data analytics, statistics, or things of that nature. It could be a higher calling, like seeing the power data can have in determining real human outcomes. But no matter what, the personal statement should always answer the question of what makes you do what you do, and why do you think the way you do. You can think of the statement of purpose as a means of commodifying and appropriating yourself to the audience, like a sales pitch. For example, since I was in a psychology program and wanted to pivot to public policy, I talk about my psychology work experiences as system failures and used a lot of terminology like crisis resilience and urban design to speak to an audience that anticipated not to understand the pressure of working in mental health and the types of things you think about in that particular setting. You don't have to lose your personal voice, but you do have to know who you're talking to and the types of things they are familiar with, as well as the information gap between you and them. In managing my own personal statements, I created an overall personal statement and statement of purpose that I thought covered everything I had ever done and everything I believed in. These were then altered and tailored to the particular programs I applied to, with a slightly different narrative based on the type of program and its research versus professional lean. If a program was more oriented towards professional development, then I would talk about my work in mental health and how that impacted the way I perceive public policy. If a program was more oriented towards research, then I would talk about my research work from undergrad and also some personal beliefs towards psychology and its relationship with public policy. Something else I want to address is the nature of the personal statement. It's meant to be more a direct representation of who you are as a person. In making this video, I consulted some of my peers in the public policy program at Harvard Kennedy, as well as peers from different fields who are also navigating graduate applications. I also talked to my mom, who was there for much of my own graduate application process and holds a PhD in biotechnology from a Chinese university herself. In their reflections, I found these insights to be especially refreshing. Bad things that happen to you do not have to be bad things in an application. For example, all the terrible things that happened to me as a consequence of having worked in mental health actually demonstrated my resilience and grit to work through things I didn't like. Niche interests can demonstrate something beyond yourself. This can be personal or professional interests. I really like Yoisaki Kanade from Project Sekai, and to an extent I kin her, while also realizing how harmful her lifestyle actually is. In doing so, I was able to find motivation to move forward when I had nothing else. Your best growth comes from looking behind you. When you reject an opinion, you reject an opportunity for growth. Since starting at HKS, I've become friends with a lot of folks in the defense sector, and while I personally do not like the prospect of war or defense or anything of the sort, you come to realize that in better understanding the actions of the defense sector, or the actions of anything undesirable, you better understand how to manipulate those exact systems to get what you want. For example, development aid to foreign nations usually comes as part of a defense or diplomacy strategy. When you understand where the defense motivations are, you can better navigate those interests to identify development actions that benefit both parties. Things you know how to do now can always be applied in new contexts. For example, the photography and design that I learned to do in high school was applied to covering policy conferences, and it helped me both make new friends while establishing new career connections. In fact, that media knowledge ended up being a point of conversation with Ken Burns, the American documentarian who is known for making films about both US history and recent civil events in American history. First of all, congratulations in advance on navigating the entire graduate application process. It wasn't easy to summarize your entire life for someone who you'll likely never see, so the hardest part is definitely over. Now that you hopefully have several offers you can compare to each other, you have to pick one. This is especially hard if you dreamt of getting into multiple programs and ended up getting offers from several of them. We call that suffering from success. To move forward towards making a decision, you might do the following in order to narrow down your possibilities. First, if your program is frequently mentioned in Reddit, you can Google search your program, reputation, or whatever else your deciding factor is, and add Reddit to the end. You'll see the popular discourse and hopefully come across some people who are in the program or recently completed the program as well. If you're into the internet discourse thing, you can even private message them to learn more about their experience. But do be aware that they won't always get back to you. If you're a little more person forward, you can go to LinkedIn and search the program directly. From there, you can connect with people who are in the program or recently completed it and ask them to talk about their experiences through a brief phone call or via email if they're especially busy. Finally, you can look at some graduation outcomes. I chose my particular program of study at my particular school because I really liked the variety of career outcomes that graduates went into, many of whom were abroad. You'll also see some information about who was in the previous incoming class and what regions of the world it represented. If the regional makeup of your peers is important to you, you'll find a lot of this information particularly helpful. At the end of the day, it's your decision to make. Even if everyone tells you not to go to a program for a specific reason, but your heart tells you it's the right decision, you should go for it, within reason, obviously. And once you're done accepting your dream program, don't forget to let all the other programs know that you won't be accepting their offer, so that your spot can go to someone on the waitlist. Looking back on my applications, I listed a lot of reasons in this video about the things I regretted not doing more. I wish that I gave myself more time to rephrase my bad experiences as something good, and that included actual time dealing with the repercussions of the things that happened to me. At the same time, I wish I had tried other things in the realm of psychology and mental health, because I know it'll be harder to go back to that once I complete my public policy degree. Related more directly to the application process, I wish I put more time into talking to people about their experiences. I had a very biased view of what my program should be since I only talked to people affiliated with the admissions team before accepting my offer. I don't regret my decision, but I wish I had a clearer picture of what to expect. I also wish that I was more okay with failure. Obviously, it feels good to succeed, and we should strive for success and general human thriving. But to do that, there is always some threat of failure involved, and I think that in general, we are more okay with missing out than we are with being rejected. I'm very fortunate to have gotten where I am, given how scared I was, and still am, of failing or being rejected, or just any iteration of the idea of being told no. Finally, looking back on the changes I made from my first round of applications to my second round, I think that I unnecessarily cordoned myself into this small domain of possibilities because I was scared of not liking something. It's okay to try things and then to know that you don't like them. It's alright to send an application to a school you're not sure about, get accepted, and realize it's simply not the opportunity you were looking for. It's an incredibly valuable skill to be able to operate under uncertainty and then accommodate changes as they appear. This video contained a lot of information about what to think about during your graduate applications process and what I personally did to navigate it in a more comprehensive or in a more understandable to me sort of way. I hope that this video helped you better understand whether grad school is for you and how you might get into a graduate program yourself. As always, feel free to leave any comments or questions in the comment section below. And as always, I'll see you next time.